Welcome back. Now let's talk vaccines. It's been the most topical thing in the world in the last 2 years, whichever way you look at it. So the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, tells us that the country has met the recommendations, the criteria listed by the World Health Organization, WHO, for maturity level 3 status for it to begin production of vaccines soon. Now, if that is not good news, then tell me what is. Now, we have the Director General of NAFDAC with us this morning, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Little wonder your smile is so broad. So let's start with, what were the criteria given by WHO for us to qualify?
Do you mind giving us giving a back, a kind of update before we go to that specific?
Okay.
Go ahead then.
I mean, I'm just curious.
Yes.
We've gone quite some distance before that. I mean, up until this one, I know that is good news for you. You've been at this for a long time yourself, researching into vaccine production and all. But before this, in terms of contending with the issues around COVID-19 in particular, how far have we come? How well have we done? What are the shortfalls that you think we had, and what are the things that we need to do to bridge the gaps?
Well, the COVID-19 pandemic taught us a great lesson. We are insecure in terms of drug security.
You told us that some time ago, and it was a little scary.
Yes, we are insecure for general commodities, drug, whether it is COVID-19 commodities or general commodities, because we import 70% of what we need, manufacturers 30%. But when COVID-19 pandemic hit or came, the reality is setting that we're in trouble as a country. We're in trouble because India shut down its pipeline. China was going through the peak of the pandemic. Our own local manufacturers couldn't get what they need. It was very scary. Something that was costing like $3 per kilogram of active pharmaceutical ingredient or drug was costing 3 times more, started costing 3 times more. So that was part of the reason why the federal government started looking inward as to the neglect of the health sector for decades. And they started putting money in some areas. For example, NAFDAC got money to update the vaccine laboratory for testing, meaning whichever vaccines we are bringing from any part of the world, we have to test it. And we need a laboratory that fits that purpose, So that is part of the intervention that we got. But when the vaccine started coming in, and to answer my sister's question here, we couldn't even get the package for the vaccine, meaning the dossier. The dossier is contains all the studies that have been done during the development, from preclinical to clinical, and clinical phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We couldn't, and that is the first time in history, recent history, that the regulatory agency will not have access to the dossier.
Why was that?
I just couldn't put 2 and 2 together. Why? Except that this was only happening in Africa. And I had so much pressure. They would ask, when are we going to get our own vaccines? When are we going? I said, we don't even have the dossier to begin with, because there are assumptions that were made at the beginning that maybe Africa is not capable of understanding the science behind it, I don't know. But finally, we started getting dossier through WHO. Meaning we have to sign, the regulatory agency has to sign a confidentiality agreement. And then they will send us the link, and then we can download whatever dossier, whatever vaccine has been approved by them, and then we download the dossier. So that was the first challenge. But we were able to get dossier. But getting the dossier and now approving or not approving is one step. Once a dossier, a vaccine is approved, the dossier is approved. We get ready for when the vaccines will come in. So that is the second stage. When the vaccines come in, the fact that we have approved the dossier doesn't mean we're not going to test it in the lab. And for the past 4 years, and I'm going to go back to what...
Oh, we'll definitely get there. I just wanted us to get this background.
But, yes.
Yeah.
So we've been upgrading our laboratory, even the ones that we are expanding, in order to be able to test the vaccines, and then we do what is called lot release. Most countries in Africa, when they get the vaccines from WHO, they don't test. And I said, we will test. And there's what we call certificate of analysis. This is the certificate that accompanies any product that is approved in terms of, oh, these are the tests that we went through in our own laboratory, the company that is making it. I insisted that we have to have the certificate of analysis so that we know the test parameters that went into them approving it. So, because of this, the newness of these vaccines, some of the testing that they did actually was customized for that company, meaning they may have to synthesize some reagents in-house to be able to test what they made. It happens that way. So our first vaccine, AstraZeneca, came with the certificate of analysis. In fact, we got that. We were very, very lucky to get that before the link or before we signed confidentiality agreement. I worked, one-on-one with Serum Institute of India, and they were kind enough to send us the dossier. That was the only dossier we got independent of WHO. So when we got the certificate of analysis...
For the very first batch.
For the very first batch.
Which was March last year.
March last year, yes. Exactly. Yeah. So we were able to... That was the first one we got independent of WHO. And that helped us greatly. And I'm going to tell you why it helped us very greatly. But in terms of the testing, okay, this company customized their own reagents to test the vaccines, but there may be 10, 12 parameters or testings that will go into the approval of one vaccine. So what we will then look, because we call them, can you send us reagents to test A, B, C, and they will say they customize their own. But we then look through the 12, 13, whatever list, okay, which ones can we do in-house that will be safety indicating? Talk about sterility, for example. A vaccine and injection has to be sterile. If it's not sterile, it's going to affect the patient. So we had 4 or 5 out of the many that we could test in-house. Without testing that, we weren't going to release the vaccine for consumption. That is what is called lot release. That's what we have been doing. Because I want to be sure that whatever we're going to get in the country will not make us ill. We will get the outcome, positive outcome of it. So that is the background of where we have been or where we are right now. But one good thing about us working directly with the company, Serum Institute, is also the ability to track and trace the vaccines wherever they go. And it is a technology-driven, what we call traceability. It is highly, highly IT-driven. You have to be very, very versatile. And NAFDAC is blessed with some staff that are really good with IT.
Well, so are these traceability ingredients? I don't know what you call it. Are these trackers? Are they inside the
That's a good question.
The vaccine itself?
That's a good question. It's just barcoding.
Because some people will say,
no. It's not in the vaccine. It's on the package.
Okay.
It's on the secondary packaging, because you have the tertiary. Primary is the vial itself.
Yes.
Where they put the vial is the secondary packaging, and where they put so many vials or so many boxes of vials is called tertiary. So this is barcoding on the box. Why? These days, without barcode, most things cannot be traced.
Yeah.
So what we were able to get is we were able to get information about what we need to track and trace the 4 million doses of AstraZeneca, because of the capacity of our own staff. And NAFDAC became the first country in the world, agency in the world, to use that technology to track where all the vaccines were in the country. Well, meaning, when it came to Abuja, what is good for us is also we restricted where the vaccines will come through. So we restricted it to Abuja airport.
Yeah.
And then once it gets there, it's taken to the cold store, the national cold store, and that is where our own staff will wait for the vaccines, and we do what is called commissioning or scanning. So we scan into the database. So 4 million doses vaccines, we scan into the database. So if 2,000 goes to Gombe or 500 goes to Oshu, we will know that this batch or 500 of this batch went to here, here, here. NAFDAC is the first country in the world, the first agency in the world to use that. And it's because we were able to work directly with the manufacturer. It would
seem like there's a lot of work that goes into this whole thing that we all know. But then it would also seem like you are switching gears, so to speak, with this WHO standards question, which my colleague asks it all the time. We've been talking about this for a long time, vaccine production in country and all. But it's not the first time we're producing vaccines in the country, is it? Not the first time. But then this WHO standards became necessary. Why is that? Why couldn't we just lean on what they call existing protocols?
Because of the advances in medical science, in pharmaceutical science, in IT. I just mentioned traceability now. Many, many years ago, you don't know how to even track and trace, but now with barcoding, you can. So why WHO is now having guidelines or giving us guidelines in terms of or recommendations to meet is because of time. The time has changed. We used to manufacture yellow fever vaccine in Yaba before, but the conditions have changed now.
Why I ask that question actually is so that we don't ever go back to that time when we now need almost 1,000 recommendations, or what are standards?
Yes.
898 standards. 868 standards for vaccine production.
Actually, it's not for vaccine production.
Okay.
It is for the regulatory agency that will need to monitor any drug, whether it's vaccine, whether it is Panadol or whatever manufacturing. For example, I got into NAFDAC 2017, November. By January 2018, we started this roadmap towards maturity level 3. And what is the best thing that could happen to any agency, by the way? Because it is the foundation laying. So we did self-audit. We had to do self-audit. And we have 8 categories from market control, meaning if this drug comes into the country and is approved, It goes to the market. If there's an issue, can it be recalled? If it expires, can it be destroyed? That is market control. Market authority, I'm giving examples of the functions, regulatory functions that make up the 868. Market authorization. What is our means of registering product? How long does it take to register product? What are the criteria that we use to register any product, whether vaccines or no vaccine? Another function is vigilance, what we call vigilance. Pharmacovigilance, which we are using as we speak to monitor the COVID-19 vaccine. How strong is NAFDAC in terms of safety monitoring of any product? So this has nothing to do with vaccine directly, but WHO is looking at the global strength of the agency.
Yeah.
Regulatory inspection is another category that make up that 868, and they gave us 100 recommendations here, 20 recommendations there. Regulatory inspection. Are you using international standards to monitor, to inspect?
Do your staff ever encounter issues when they go out to inspect, for instance? Because in the course of this week, we heard about standards organization staff who went out to inspect stuff in the market.
Yes.
And they were attacked and, you know, beaten up and all that.
Yes.
So do your staff encounter those kinds of incidents as well?
Yes, we do. Let me just start from this not so obvious thing. When you want to inspect, do you have vehicles to inspect first? If you don't have vehicles, are you going to take Okada? They're going to mark you on whether you are capacitated enough to even go. But coming back to your question, about 3 years ago, somebody reported that an antibiotic in the northwest or northeast wasn't working, and they took it to our lab, and we started tracking, and we tracked it to Onitsha Bridgehead. It had 0 content.
Oh, God.
Antibiotic.
Oh, slow down, man. So, you found a drug in the north.
Yes.
And you tracked, what, the factory?
Where it came, where it was bought. Because, yes, where, for example, if a pharmacist or patent medicine dealer bought something, where the receipt, where did you get it from?
Yeah.
We tracked it that way. So, our investigation and enforcement directorate went to inspect.
Onitsha.
Yes.
Onitsha Bridge.
Yes.
On top bridge.
No, they call it Onitsha Bridgehead. And we went, okay, the investigation and enforcement directorate also houses the federal task force. The federal task force is supposed to monitor substandard falsified medicine, unwholesome food, C-34 law. That's one of our laws. They went and they found out that the drugs were not where the drugs stores are. The drugs were in a plumbing section of the market. But that's its intelligence. And then our staff went there with police and they mobbed them. They mugged them.
So to begin with, the person who brought those drugs in knew that they would contain nothing. So he was hiding in the plumbing section.
The person that first of all used it, that reported that he or she wasn't feeling better, took it to our own lab.
Yes.
In Kaduna. And we started investigating. And we then knew that that medicine came from the Bridgehead. So it has nothing to do with the person now. It is now we tracking it.
Okay.
The person just didn't feel better. health-wise.
Okay.
And then we tracked it to the bridgehead, and any of our staff could have been killed. Our staff have been death threats. We get death threats. One of our staff in Kano, the daughter was kidnapped because he was doing his job. So that is what people don't know about our day-to-day activities. And that is just one of our 18 directorates in investigation and enforcement. So just like you said about Sun, they've attacked us many times, many times. A driver that doesn't even have anything to do with inspection was threatened that if he took any of our officers to go and do what they're supposed to do, they will kill him.
Oh dear.
So that is, now going back to vaccines. So regulatory inspection. WHO wants to know that you are capacitated enough to be able to inspect a vaccine lab.
Well, madam, all these regulations, just as you have said, they are not, they don't have anything to do directly with the production of the vaccine.
That's right.
Wow, 868 recommendations. Okay, so how about the vaccine production itself?
Good.
Where are we?
So now, for the vaccine production, without an agency meeting the maturity level 3 threshold, the country will not be allowed to manufacture vaccines.
So all those other criteria had to be met if you wanted to.
Exactly.
So that's nothing to do, we have not even started talking about the production.
Now the
just laying foundation for the house.
Foundation. Now for the production. For example, we have a company, BioVaccines in Nigeria, that is partnering with the Ministry of Health. It's a PPP arrangement. The ministry has 49%. The private company has 51%. Now, in fact, they just announced on their factory is going to be in Ogun State. And the Ministry of Environment in Ogun State just had a public announcement that BVNL or BioVaccine will be breaking ground very soon, and the community is being informed that, if they have any questions or whatever concerns, let them know, because it's a vaccine production facility, and the Ministry of Environment also, weighs in. So that is already imminent, that we're going to start, Nigeria is going to start its own vaccine manufacturing very, very soon.
How soon is very, very soon?
2022.
Okay.
Yes. Now, from the beginning, meaning with the engineering works, laying the floor plan, NAFDAC has to be involved. Why? Because it is part of good manufacturing practice. We want to be sure that it's going to be built based on international standards. Yes. For example, when the vaccine facility is completed, it has to be WHO pre-qualified, the facility itself. So we want to be sure that the quality is built into it, not added after.
Right from scratch.
Exactly. So we're going to be there. Our Drug Evaluation and Research Directorate, in charge of GMP inspection, will be there from the beginning. Now,
I beg your pardon, Prof.
Yes.
Did Nigeria go through all this, NAFDAC go through all this before we began to produce vaccines in Yaba?
No. No.
Okay.
No.
Why?
Okay, first,
the standards were not there at the time?
The standards were not as rigorous at that time. And with the times that have changed, I knew when I joined NAFDAC as DG that the foundation has to be there. We are setting a foundation for vaccines, for any type of
other
drug.
things in the future.
Exactly. It is a legacy work that we are doing. So the standards, the standards are there to protect the public. Because if a regulatory agency doesn't even have a clue of the criteria that will need to be used to inspect a vaccine or a facility. Then that facility can be approved without meeting the expectations, and then it will pose danger to the public.
And ultimately affect sustainability.
Yes.
Now, so to the question of sustainability, as you said, there was a time in our country that we were producing vaccines.
Yes.
And along the line, we stopped producing for whatever reason. How do we ensure, or how is NAFDAC going to help ensure, given all these Herculean 868 recommendations, that we don't go back to the time when we lost the capacity to produce vaccines? What's the sustainability assurance that you can give us?
Thank you.
That is not only for, because everyone, including you, have also said, look, this is the pandemic we're dealing with now. It's probably not going to be the only one.
That's right.
In the shortest possible time, and hopefully not. But as Zeruda would say, to be forewarning is to be forearming.
That's right.
So how do we ensure that we do not go back to that time where we now have to build from scratch all over again?
You know, this question has been asked over the last 2 months, maybe 3, 4, 5 times, different forum. I happened to pass through a phase in my life as a professor in the U.S. As an assistant professor, I joined the university. I didn't know the details of the history of the university in terms of money and whatnot. And a few months before I joined this university, the president, what we call VC, also joined the university. They got a new president. I then learned, as soon as I joined, that this university was bankrupt before they employed me. Faculty, professors will go to the street and panhandle and said, please donate for this university.
Research.
Yes, please donate for the university. I didn't know. And this president came, he has looked through the books and found out that there was big loopholes in the management of the finances. Because you can spend money on things that you think are good, but in terms of sustainability may not be good. For example, this university is a religious university, and they were giving scholarships to this person, to that person, but there wasn't enough money coming in to offset the scholarship. So when this new president came, he said that when he leaves the university, it will take a genius to bankrupt it again. What did he do? He said, all of us need our brains to be washed. So we started going through what is called quality management system. That was what I adopted for NAFDAC, my first quarter here. We started going through quality management system. Quality management system is a system that puts the customer first, meaning you, me, as the user of medicines or food or whatever. What am I doing that is going to affect you when you take this medicine or you drink this water? What am I doing that will impact negatively? And what can I do right? So we started imbibing standard operating procedures to drive our processes. We started having documentations. We started digitalizing our systems. This process started February of 2018. And we were trained. It's an agency-wide training. Started from Abuja, Lagos, we cascaded to the states. From the states cascaded to, to the zones rather. From the zones we cascaded down to the states. For everybody to start imbibing this culture of customer first. And that's why we changed we added our logo, another motto, customer focused, agency minded. If I'm customer focused and I'm minding NAFDAC, I have NAFDAC in mind, it means I love this country.
Prof.
So that was what happened. Quality management system is not one-off. We got accredited or certified June of 2019. By November, we've started another year of recertification. We got certified in 2020, recertified 2020. By November 2020, we started another cycle, self-audit, introspection or whatever. And then we just finished the one for 2021, and we got recertified. We have started 2022 in November. That is what is going to sustain it. It is having a system that is strong enough to be repeatable, reproducible for the benefit of the customers.
Yeah, Prof, when you spoke about your staff going to the market and being threatened and being mobbed and all that, is NAFDAC thinking of any kind of awareness campaign to the Nigerian to make him understand that the work you're doing is actually for their benefit? That you don't want them spending money buying medicine that will not cure them, or even buying medicine that may even make their condition worse, or even kill them, which is the basis of the work that you're doing. Maybe you need to make them understand that.
Actually, we do, but we can do better. We can do better, whether it is the enforcement that will go out. For example, about a month ago, I got a call from the director of enforcement. Digima, we have a raid to make at the, what do you call it? It's a big market in Lagos. They got intelligence report that there are 2 warehouses with a lot of falsified medicines, counterfeited medicines, medicines that have been banned. What did we come out with? Over 20 truckloads of counterfeit, banned medicines, medicines that can kill, including tramadol. So, first of all, we didn't plan for that, budget-wise. 20 truckloads. And we have to then put them in the warehouse and then destroy. So, but to come back to your question, we can do better in terms of saying but we do it. It's just that maybe we need to put more emphasis, underscore it, that this is for the safety of me and you, because we are part of the users. So it is extremely important that all these functions converge together for a regulatory agency. I was at the meeting, we just finished the African Medicine Regulatory Harmonization Conference yesterday, and WHO came to present in terms of vaccines, and they said no ML3, no vaccine production for any country.
You've talked about what do you call it? Well, herbal medicine so many times. In fact, even on this program, you talked about how passionate you are about it. There's a name you give, Phyto medicine.
Phyto medicine, yes.
Is there any hope for that now? We have to round off in a minute, but is there any hope in the nearest future to ramp that up and make it official?
Actually, yes, there is even better hope now. First, because we want a renaissance of our natural medicines, phytomedicines. There is a lot of activities that have been taking place since March of 2019 from NAFDAC. We have been educating the herbal practitioners. We are pairing them up with researchers in the university, because herbal practitioners may not know the science. So we are pairing them up. And
on this,
yes.
We need to take a break now, Alero, because I don't think we should let her go yet on this particular one, because it's like saying the art of something and the act of something. There's been that challenge in certain segment that we have in our country. But we'll take a short break.
Thank you.
And when we return, we'll do our more of that. Just stay with us. Professor Mojisola is still with us. She's Director General of NAFDAC. Phytomedicine.
Yes.
It's so readily available. It's handy. You know, and many people see short videos, of course, in this age of digital media.
Yes.
People can easily circulate, you know, all kinds of videos and all. So if we don't get ahead of these officially, we might continue to have these issues. So I'm speaking against the backdrop of, oh, okay, so this is what it is. And I saw a video recently of someone saying that there are some medicinal values in from a banana tree. You know, that they it's not the banana itself.
Yes,
it's not the tree. It's not. It's that hop, the end of the bunch.
Oh.
If you want to take care of
it. They come out looking pinkish or reddish.
I don't even.
Like a tail.
That one, yes, the top of it. Some blood, you know, conditions and all of that. So if we don't get ahead of these, you know, of this officially, people are going to continue to try all kinds of things that could jeopardize their lives.
Yes.
So how far are we from making phytomedicine official?
Actually, that is my own dream. That's my own goal.
I know.
Let me just start with ewuro. Ewuro is on Amazon as capsules.
Yes, yes.
Slow down, girls. What's going on here?
Yes. And it is native to us.
You have not heard?
Ewuro in capsule.
Yes.
Benny.
On Amazon.
Benny.
Yes. So there are many things.
Bitter leaf capsules
there are many
chemists
things
in America.
we have that are of medicinal value, but we have not investigated. We have not documented it. That is why NAFDAC started the Herbal Medicine Product Committee in 2019 March to bring the herbalists that have been handed so many recipes by their ancestors that don't know the science, to pair them up with the scientists. So we have about 8 or 9 pairs now of herbalists and researchers working together. CBN has the Health Sector Research and Development Intervention Scheme with emphasis on our phytomedicines. What we want to do is to see these pairs being funded so that the investigation can be done. For example, this talk of a banana tree or whatever, who knows? There may be medicinal property there, but it has to be investigated. Without investigation, it will just be...
How far are we from that partnership, from that funding thing? Because we know that that fund that you talked about from CBN is especially for research. That's what the CBN said at the time. Yes. So how far are we from that?
We are actually in the middle of evaluation of submissions, applications that were submitted, and this body of there's a body of experts that reviews the submissions, and I believe by the end of the year we're going to wrap it up to know who will be funded.
That's about 4 weeks away.
About 4 weeks away.
Wow.
We will, because we started a while back. I shouldn't say long time, but many of us in the body of experts are also heads of their agencies, busy. Pandemic threw everybody out of their regular schedule, so we couldn't finish as quickly as we should in the review process.
Now,
but we will.
Okay, in the pairing,
yes.
I know that it could be difficult to get herbalists, especially the local ones, away from their natural way of doing things and get them to make it official and stuff like that. How easy has that been? How welcoming are they of that idea?
Actually, that's a very good question. Because when we started this Herbal Medicine Product Committee, the herbalists came to me and said, DG, we're not going to trust the researchers because they're going to steal our ideas unless NAFDAC is going to midwife it. So what we did, aside from creating a conducive environment to pair, is to create a confidentiality agreement between the herbalist and the researcher, and for NAFDAC to be the witness. So we have done that. So those 9 pairs or 8 pairs that I was talking about came with us with the confidentiality agreement. that if NAFDAC midwives it, they will have confidence. So that is how far the pairing has been. Our own herbalists also have been trained or exposed to protection of their information, intellectual property. So we brought in patent attorneys to talk with them. That if you have something that you think is going to change the world in terms of health, come to us and file for patent. We brought in, what do you call it, trademark office, Ministry of Trade, to come and talk with them. So they are getting much better in terms of what they should know. So this pairing, I believe, is working, and very, very shortly, we're going to see products coming into the market. That are, for example, NAFDAC is one of the few countries in the world that even have structured means of approval of herbal medicines. Even FDA in US doesn't have it. We have 2 levels of approval. The listing approval, meaning we go through the safety to make sure, we do safety tests, to make sure that if I take this medicine, I will not die. But the efficacy part of it, which involves clinical trials, which is costly, is where everybody gets stuck.
Yeah.
So we do the list. There are many products that are listed in the market, our market. So we have a structured way. It is now for private donors, philanthropists, government to encourage clinical trials of herbal medicines. And before we know it, we're going to be stumbling on so many things. Sickle cell is one of them, you know.
Wow.
Prof, we had a guest here once who said that his child was ill and he was given some medication in the hospital and the child didn't improve over 3 or 4 days.
Yes.
And then, you remember?
Yeah.
And then he had to go and complain, and then they tested the drug and they found that it contained nothing at all, which was the reason why the child was not getting better.
Yeah.
So my question is, does NAFDAC have the numbers to actually check every drug that is manufactured in this country, every drug that is coming into this country? Because we still see wheelbarrows of all kinds of strange colored capsules. Name the color under the sun. The capsule is in that wheelbarrow. And I'm sure that most of them are just plain, excuse my language, crap.
Yes, actually, this is one of our activities that we do every day. The hawkers. We seize their wares. Unfortunately, you seize the wares of a hawker in Ikeja. Next time they leave, they are in Agege.
Next time he's in Lagos Island.
Lagos Island, you know.
So that's just talking about one state.
Yes.
Oh,
so we continuously monitor and go after this. However, in terms of products that are coming in, the formal, through the formal route, pre-shipment testing was there before I joined NAFDAC. But there were big gaps, loopholes in that pathway or whatever for drugs coming process. And these are for drugs coming from India and China. Because that is where most of our 70% that come in, that's where they come from. So what we did was we went to China and India with about 7 or 6 of my staff. But before we went, all the old laboratories that we've been working with, we told them to send what they have. What are the testing, what are the instruments that they have, and so on. And then we send them what we are coming to inspect. So between China and India, we went over 19 laboratories. Individually, looking at the different companies or the different laboratories. We call it clean report inspection analysis, or analyst for those that are in charge, CRIA. Then the agents, CRI agents that are in charge of those laboratories, will let them know that we're not going to be dealing with the laboratories through you. We're going to be dealing with the laboratories directly. And with you directly. Since then, I've not been given the update now, but 2 months ago, we have over 70 different types of medicines that have been stopped. And we are not talking of one container. If we had approved them, we are talking of maybe 50 containers, because once you approve, it's for 5 years. The renewal comes after 5 years. So we have stopped about 70 different products.
How come? What about food? Because we see all kinds of things on shelves in supermarkets, and you wonder, where did this one come from? Especially from China, we're told.
Yes, that is a big challenge for food. First of all, if it is company to company, the NAFDAC is monitoring that, company to company.
Yes.
But we have what is the global listing pathway or process for the big supermarkets. For example, if a big supermarket is going to come up with 1,000 products, you cannot test 1,000 products. But the supermarket has to know where they are getting this from. If it is not credible, we will do random sampling on the shelf. And if they fail, we're going to fine or sanction the supermarket. We are doing that. We are trying to improve on that, because that is, you mentioned on the shelf, and many of these some of these are imported, of the global listing supermarketers. If it is local, we are in more control, first because it is one product to one agency, or two products to one agency. Whereas if it is global listing, it's 10,000 products, 5,000 products. But our supermarketers are very, very aware of the vigilance of NAFDAC.
So the fear of NAFDAC is the beginning of wisdom.
Beginning of, yes, it's the beginning of wisdom for the health of our people. Yes.
Well, you forgive me, still on this, phytomedicine and all, because I'm sure I know you're also big on nutrition. Now, there are agencies of government at the subnational level, like I think it's the Lagos State Natural Herbal Medicine Training System or stuff like that. I don't know if Lagos is the only one or there are others in other states, but how is NAFDAC working with them in a way, because we know, I've also learned that between the official pharmaceutical companies and the natural medicine, there is a little bit of tiff that needs to be married. So how are you working that out to ensure that, look, ultimately, it's for the good of all?
Actually, yes, we're working with I've forgotten the LSMB, MTB or whatever. We're working with them, but we work with them based on, because it's a conglomerate of individuals that have their own companies. But we work with them through the individual herbal practitioners. And if, for example, a product comes from that end, it has to be scaled up. And there are few companies, I'm talking of pharmaceutical companies now, that are ready to scale it up once the clinical trials are done for efficacy, once, of course, the safety is first done for listing, and then for clinical trials for efficacy. One aspect that I need to bring up is NIPRID, National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development. NIPRID was created to focus on phytomedicines. And NIPRID is doing a lot right now in terms of research and development, and even training of some of these practitioners. It's not just NAFDAC's job. Primarily, it is actually NIPRID's job to ensure that phytomedicine dealers are well trained and so on. So NIPRID is also doing that. And I believe we're going to get a lot of mileage out of that, because it's a research institute, and they focus only on research.
Do they have the kind of funding they need? Because we understand that they have also complained about funding.
Actually, the federal government funded NIPRID along with other health sectors. So I believe NIPRID has funding, some funding from the federal government. So things are much better now.
Will you say the same for NIMA?
NIMA, I don't want to be talking on behalf of others.
No,
Yes.
I know. Because ultimately, you're big on research,
Yes.
and the basis of everything is research.
That's right.
And since both of them, NIPRID and NIMA, are research institutes, I'm just wondering.
NIMA is also getting a lot of attention now. It is extremely important what NIMA does. We actually collaborate with NIMA, NIPRID, because ours is regulatory. However, I'm big on research collaboration. The research that will now drive our regulatory process. For example, let's talk of food. Mold, fungi in food can cause all sorts of ailments. So we work very closely with Mina, University of Technology in Mina. In fact, 5 of our own staff are there doing masters or PhD.
Wow.
Because we want their research to now drive our own regulation. That, oh, okay, it is this particular natural product that has the most mold, or doesn't have mold or whatever. That will help us in terms of our own investigation, enforcement, and post-marketing surveillance.
We could go on and on with this conversation.
We just took the advantage of having you here today to just take you everywhere we wanted. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Director General NAFDAC, which is the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control. Thank you very much for being
Thank you.
with
So
us.
good to be here, always.
And just before we go on a break to take the home stretch, this mail came in after the segment on subsidy, and Mr. G or Mrs. G, just signed G, says, it is this same subsidy regime that's the bane of the power sector. Privatization was predicated upon the subsidy being progressively removed until right pricing is achieved through market forces. Instead, the subsidy regime has been kept, making it impossible to attract investments to the sector. Between COVID and collapsed oil prices, they quickly rushed tariff increases, doubled them in fact, and this has met the consumer resistance. This has meant consumer resistance because there is no commensurate service to go with it. If a product costs 50 naira and the regulator sells it for 30, there's bound to be a problem. You can't expect the private investors to carry this burden. Government that should do this is doing so inefficiently that the desired benefit is not getting to the consumer.
Uh-oh. Again, government,
so
you got your work cut out for you. You signed for it.
It's all government today.
All right, so the home stretch is next after now. Stay with us.